What is up, everybody? We are back, episode number 58 of the Big Five Pod, season in full swing now. We got a lot to go over, so we're going to get right into it. But first, I'm your co-host, Kyle Morello, and next to me here is my other co-host, the one and only Jake Copestick. Cope, how we doing?
Kyle, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Wasn't able to catch too much over the weekend. Penn, we went up to Harvard. We had a big game up there where the implications were if Penn won the game Saturday, we stayed alive for a potential share or outright chance at the Ivy League championship. If we lost, it meant that Harvard clinched at least a share with the chance to win outright this week at Yale for rivalry week. We lost a heartbreaker in triple overtime. Guys fought their asses off. Shame it ended that way, but that's sports. That's sports. Fortunately, it happens. But this week, I was at Bluster Monday night for
Yeah.
Penn Villanova, and then I was at Drexel Temple on Tuesday. So I was finally able to have some time after work to be able to finally get back in the building, be on the scene again. So after Saturday's heartbreak, from working so much and the season kind of coming to an end here for Penn football. Real nice to get back in the gym. Real nice for some Big Five hoops to go on. And as we're going to talk about, Kyle, I saw two very, very good games. I was very, very lucky to be in the building for both of them. Some really good Big Five games to look on. For me, could have been better Saturday. Been better since. Been watching a lot of hoops. Been having a lot of fun. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Listen, had a nice weekend with Shelby up in New York. Didn't also really watch a ton of the games, but uh we don't have to talk about Sunday Night Football. We're gonna go there. We can't talk about Monday Night Football though. A very impressive victory by your Broncos. So congratulations to you. It's not all bad for football on your part. And yeah, union wise, we're getting ready for Cincinnati, and that's pretty much all I can say about that. So yeah, but listen, Cope, we had a lot to talk about on this episode, a lot of game action. Also some other news too, though, of course. So we will now turn it over to you for your quick hitters. Once again, what do you have for us?
All right, I got my basketball out again, Kyle. Let's run the damn break.
Let's run
Give
it.
me the rock. Let's do this thing. So to start out, Jameer Nelson, widely regarded as maybe the best St. Joe's Hawk of all time. He just got a promotion. He was working for the Sixers as a scout, was working in the front office for the Delaware Bluecoats, and he is now the general manager of the Delaware Bluecoats, Kyle. Like I said, previously worked in a couple of different roles in the Sixers organization with the Sixers, with the G League team. He is now the general manager of the Delaware Bluecoats. So pretty cool for Jameer Nelson. Staying on St. Joe's, Kyle, some coaching news here. Not only talking about Phil Martelli, but we're going to stay in the Martelli family a little bit for another segment as well. But Phil Martelli, obviously filling in at Michigan. Juwan Howard had a heart procedure in the offseason. Phil Martelli going to stand in as, I'm sure it's a very seamless transition. He's done this already. If you remember Juwan Howard when he tried to
How could we forget?
yeah, when
Yeah,
he tried to fight
Greg
Mark
Gard.
Turgeon
Oh,
in the
Mark
Big Ten
Targis.
tournament, Phil Martelli finished that game, which the Wolverines
I thought it was
won.
Greg Gard.
Well, that's a different incident. I didn't
Oh,
even
okay,
get to that
okay.
yet. He
Yeah.
tried to fight Mark Turgeon in the Big Ten tournament, and he got ejected. Phil Martelli finished that game. They won. Then he obviously Juwan Howard, as you alluded to there, he had a 5-game suspension for striking a member of the Wisconsin coaching staff after an altercation with Greg Gard after a game. Phil Martelli filled in. I believe he went 3-2 in that stretch. Michigan sneaks into the tournament and they make Sweet 16, beating Colorado State as an 11. They were an 11 seed. Colorado State was a 6, and they knocked off Rick Barnes' Tennessee team with Kennedy Chandler on it. So, no surprise that Phil Martelli, Tommy, if you've heard this before, he's having success as a head coach. Gets Michigan to a 3-0 start. They had a big game in the Gavitt games, the Big East Big Ten matchup. They went to Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. Rick Pitino returning to the MSG, this time as the head coach of the Johnnies. Huge game, a lot of hype, and the Wolverines come out victorious. And after losing a lot in the offseason, the Caleb Love situation, Hunter Dickinson transferring, these Wolverines are 3-0, Kyle. They're shaping up to be a pretty damn good team. They have the look of a tournament team and the look of a contender in the Big Ten after a lot of people wrote them off and what happened to them in the offseason. Staying in the Martelli family, Kyle, Phil Martelli Jr., was the interim head coach of Bryant after Jared Grosso resigned. He resigned Monday. There was a situation going on with a hit and run that he was involved in that apparently he got off. Maybe some other stuff behind the scenes going on there, Bryant. They removed the interim tag from Phil Martelli Jr. Like I said, Jared Grosso resigned. This is now Phil Martelli's job to lose. And as Jaden Daly tweeted at us when we had retweeted this, apparently Phil Martelli Jr. actually is a pretty solid shot to potentially land this job after the season and get this thing, long term and to be the ultimate full time guy. Let's talk some recruiting. LaSalle. We've already talked about them adding Deuce Jones to their 2024 class. They just added an international prospect. Since Dunphy's been there, they've added quite a few international prospects. They just landed Greek international 6'10" center. And it's the first time I'm going to try and say this, Kyle. I really hope I don't butcher this guy's name, but I'm going to try it out. Efstrachos Kaliansis. I think that's how you say it.
Not bad.
That did not sound right coming off the tongue. The point being, they landed another recruit to go with their 2024 class, an international center, to go behind Rokas Yotsus. Hey, it's worked out pretty well for LaSalle if we're going to go the international route. Like it's worked out so far. And last but not least, this just came out this week. Desir Haskins, freshman forward from Camden. He is going to redshirt this season for St. Joseph's. Yet you look at all the returners, Cameron Brown, Lynn Greer, Eric Reynolds, all these guys come back. Richard Fleming's had a really good year. He's actually taking Kasper Klachik's spot in the starting lineup, even with Christy Sandoko coming back. Like I said, talking about Kasper, he's back. Christian Winborn is back. And then you look at the three freshmen, a guy like Sean Simmons, who was on campus last year but didn't play. He's been playing minutes. Anthony Pinkley's been playing. And then we're going to get to Xavier Brown because he had quite the game against Stonehill, but he's been playing some big minutes as well. So just a log that Desir Haskins has to play behind. They decide to redshirt. I think both for Desir Haskins and for St. Joseph's long term, I think this is a really good move. But he will be sitting out this year, and we will see him next year. And that wraps us up, Kyle. We had a lot of good games. I'm going to kick it to you. Let's talk about them.
All right, let's talk about them. Before we get into this week just yet, we're going to quickly, very, very, very quickly go over one game during the weekend that we kind of talked about a little bit at the end of our last episode. Apologies, of course, for not having the midweek episode. We were both traveling and were exhausted and just needed a night to chill out. And that was supposed to be the night that we recorded. So we apologize, but we would not be doing this episode and we'd probably be not doing it well if we didn't do that. So we figured it was what was best. But St. Joe's hosted Penn at Hagan Arena and beat the Quakers 69-61. Some highlights of this one. Clark Slacker was back. 27 points on 11-17 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. Great to see him flamethrowing once again. The first couple games for them, maybe not as much, especially volume wise. He wasn't quite there, but it was good to see him have that kind of breakout game for them. But other than that, they really didn't have a ton of performers. They only shot 37% as a team. So there was that. And then, of course, you go to the Hawks, and they had a pair of 13-point scorers in Eric Reynolds and Lynn Greer. Chris Noko made his debut, having 9 points and 10 rebounds, which is good to see. For sure, Fleming, of course, that you mentioned, 8 points and 7 rebounds. And Xavier Brown, 8 points off the bench. And you know what, Cope? Let's keep talking about Xavier Brown. Why don't we? Because St. Joe's, played Stonehill, and we can talk about this first because this will also be a quick one to go over because Stonehill's not quite the competition that St. Joe's will be facing for the rest of the season, and that showed in the final score, which was 100-56. But it was a little bit of a coming out party for Xavier Brown. Again, 21 points, which led the team on 8 of 11 from the field. He played 23 minutes in this one. And there's some other scores as well. Eric Reynolds, 15 points on 5 of 7 from the field. Rasheer Fleming, 14 points on 6 of 10. Cameron Brown on 12 points on 5 of 9. And they shot really well from 3, 41.7%. And Cope, every player played in this game for St. Joe's, which is cool. You don't see that very often. So really happy that could happen, that some guys who may not be able to get minutes later in the season got some minutes in this one. But Cope, we're not going to spend too much time on this one, but what did you see in this? I'm trying to think of a great adjective for it, but it was a hell of a performance from St. Joe's.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. This is a team that they should beat up on. Stonehill, very new to D1. Still kind of getting acclimated to the competition and recruiting to get up to this level, even in a conference as small as the NEC. But yeah, Xavier Brown was big time in this game. And even as a freshman, even with all the guards that are ahead of him on this team, he's going to get minutes. Look, Kyle, it's not hard. You win basketball games by scoring more points than the other team. This dude's a bucket getter. This dude is a straight bucket getter. I mean, he's really, really quick with the ball in his hand, can get by you and get to the rim. He was awesome. He was really, really good. Rasheer Fleming, again, he's taken over that power forward spot over Kasper Klacik. 14 points on 6 to 10 shooting. He's a guy to monitor as far as most improved on the Big Five. We know we put our list down. I think Mark Armstrong, in terms of being in a better league on a team that's going to get more visibility in Villanova, and he's now starting. He's got a chance to be that guy, but I think your Fleming really is someone to keep your eye on. His ability to stretch the floor defensively, you can do a lot of different things with him. And as a sophomore, I mean, even last year, Billy Lang was like, we weren't sure if he was going to play right away, and then he played that first game against Houston and was one of their better players in the second half of that game. So he's certainly ready for the college game with a year under his belt. He's shown that through a couple games here. He's locked up that power forward spot. Really good for them. So not exactly great competition here. Now they're going to have a step up when they play Kentucky pretty soon. This is a team that they should have handled like this, but nice to see your young guys playing really well when they're given the opportunity. Because the minutes for Xavier Brown, they were probably going to be there anyway. But if he's going to be able to do this and give you a big time scoring spark off the bench, his minutes are going to increase. And even as a freshman, even as a first year guy on campus, this guy's going to play a lot big time. He really, really is. If you haven't seen him play, he's really, really exciting to watch. Really, really talented scorer.
Oh yeah, the X-Man. Listen, this we knew going into the year that this was going to be this deepest Joe's team that we've seen in quite some time. And you're seeing it already. I mean, obviously, this wasn't the most highly touted game that they will play this year for sure, but you got to see there was a lot of people that can be on the basketball court for them. And Xavier Brown, obviously he's not going to start for them, but definitely an important piece coming off the bench. And the other thing interesting too, really quick, I wanted to mention with you mentioning Rasheer Fleming starting at the 4 now and Kasper Klacik going to the bench. I really like Kasper Klacik coming off the bench. I think that's someone who can, for better or for worse, lead that second unit for them and give them a lot of flexibility in terms of lineup and staggering their lineups and stuff, especially with the starters too. And obviously veteran leadership that you get with him as well is very, very important, especially with all those young guys coming off the bench. So that's an interesting development that I didn't know we would see right now, if at all, heading into this year. So that'll be something to keep an eye out for as well. All right. That was not maybe the best game of the slate. Cope, we're going to talk about a few bangers right now because we had some bangers in the slate. So why don't we get into it? You were in the building at the Palestra for Penn's upset over number 21 Villanova, 69-61. Just the second time in the last 16 tries now that Penn has beat Villanova. So, a lot of times on this podcast, we don't want to overhype things too much, but this is a big deal. This is a very big deal that Penn won this game. So I'm going to let you take it away because you were in the environment. You were right there in the thick of things and you saw the game from start to finish. So tell me what you saw in this one.
So I want to piggyback off what you just said. Yes, this is a very, very big deal, especially with the court storm, the streamers. There was a great atmosphere. The Palestra, almost the corners are almost full, Kyle. For a college game, that's probably the most packed I've ever seen the Palestra in maybe 5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. That's the most packed I've seen the Palestra. So it's a huge deal for Penn to win this game. And if you looked at Villanova Twitter, you thought the sky was falling. You thought that people were in an absolute panic. I mean, if Villanova Twitter was running the athletic department this isn't talking about everybody, but I saw some disgusting gross knee jerk reactions.
We saw some
game.
negative tweets on our feed. That's for sure.
Cal Neptune would probably if some Villanova Twitter people were handling the athletic department.
Yeah.
But regardless, we'll get into the game. Kyle, I think I'm just going to come out and say this right now. Steve Donahue, as much as Fran Dunphy is a terrific coach, he's Mr. Big Five. The best coach in the Big Five right now is Steve Donahue, X and O wise. What a great game plan they had to come out in the zone for a team like Penn that doesn't have the length, the athleticism, the size that a Villanova has. They played in that zone. They went to a 2-3 zone. They slowed down Villanova. They were hesitant. They were not playing fast. They were not playing with instincts. They were just hesitant, just slow. They were thinking way too much, but that's what that zone does. It doesn't allow you to play freely, just beat people off the dribble, fun pick and rolls and stuff like that. You have to think more about cuts and getting into the defense and breaking down the zone. So great game plan, first of all. But Kyle, there was no adjustments really made here. That's what was the part that was concerning to me about Villanova. It's like they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out how to break the zone. They couldn't have 2, 3, 4 possessions in a row where it's like they got a basket, they got a super quality look. They got themselves an easy look. Like Penn made them work for everything here, and you have to give them credit for that. And then when Villanova tried to go to a press and they tried to switch things up, Penn was able to handle it. And then you look on the offensive end, Villanova wants to switch everything. That's what they do. That's why they have the personnel they do that can make up for that when you have to switch everything, but you have a bunch of athletes and a bunch of versatility and size on the court that can cover a bunch of different positions. That covers up switching all the time. But Nick Spinoso was able to get himself some quality looks. Even when he had Eric Dixon on him, was able to get himself some quality looks. Clark Slacker was able to take Eric Dixon and some of the bigger guys off the dribble, get himself some open looks. Tyler Perkins, wow, you're watching a star blossom right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
This dude is big time. Leads them in scoring as a freshman in only his I'm going to say this was, it was his third game against a D1 opponent, fourth game in college if you're going to count the John Jay game to start the year. But for him not only to lead this team in scoring against Villanova, but Kyle, the thing about Tyler Perkins, he's not afraid of the moment. He is not afraid at the end of the shot clock when Villanova's on a bit of a run. He wants to take that shot. He wants to be the guy to kind of silence. No, they were at home, but hypothetically speaking here, like figuratively speaking, silence the crowd, end the run. When they need a basket, he wants to be that guy that's going to take that shot for them. So he was huge in this game. Tyler Perkins stepped up. Like I said, when they were able to take advantage of switching, and Nick Spinoza would maybe have a Jordan Longino or a smaller guy on him. It's like, well, Clark Slacker almost had 30 points Friday. Can't help off him. Tyler Perkins has been dynamite ever since he put on a Penn uniform. You can't really help off him. When you have a George Smith in the game, Ed Holland knocked down a couple threes. You can't exactly help off these guys. You have to stick to your man, and unfortunately, the switch just kind of is what it is. So on both ends of the court, it was a terrific game plan by Steve Donahue and his staff. That's why I think he's the best coach in the Big Five. There was not really any adjustments by Villanova. And then, Kyle, how about this? Hakeem Hart only played 9 minutes in this game.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that.
Really, really confused by that. But I think the argument to be made there is 14 points on 4 of 8 shooting. Jordan Longino played 29 very quality minutes for the Wildcats, which he's capable of this. He just hasn't shown you the last year or so because he's been hurt all the time. He hasn't been able to get into a rhythm on the court. Like people were, remember when they made the Final Four and he was a freshman. They really only played 6 guys that year. He was the 7th guy that was playing solid minutes for them and was contributing. He just had an injury and unfortunately missed the tournament or missed most of the tournament. So he's capable of this. It's just his health has held him back from doing that. So I guess that's your argument, is that Longino was the hot hand, and really Villanova, there was spurts where they were really stuck in a rut. They couldn't get anything going, and Longino was the guy that brought him out of it. Great game plan by Penn. All starters in double figures. They were playing loose. They were playing confident. Obviously, the Palestra crowd gave them a lot of energy and was terrific. The one thing, Kyle, I'll say about Penn, 21 of 34 from the free throw line. Not going to get it done.
Especially because that game got close late, partially because of that.
And it should not have been that way because of the free throws.
Because they were up, I think it was 11 with like 4 minutes to go around there, like 3:55.
They had a sizable lead. They got cut down to
3 at one point.
5 points. Shouldn't have ever been like that. But yeah, Penn, and then also how about to out rebound them? How about the Ivy League Penn Quakers out rebounding a Big East team? That was huge. And another thing with the zone that I felt like Villanova couldn't really figure out. did not shoot great from the 3-point line. Villanova 9 of 33 is a team over half of they shot 33 3-pointers and they took 63 field goal attempts. I feel like that's been another thing in this game and even last year under Kyle Neptune. It feels like at times they can get a little free happy.
Yeah.
So, on a night where they're cold, Penn will play that zone and hey, like if you're gonna shoot over us and you're gonna take deep threes or you're gonna take some hard looks, they can live with that. But on a night where Villanova had a cold night shooting and stayed in that zone, and it worked out for them. But terrific win, great atmosphere, the court storm, of course, some streamers. Great night to be at the Palestra. I'm sure a lot of the alumni from Villanova and Penn who had seen the Big Five in their heyday, I'm sure they were having some big time flashbacks of when the Big Five was really in its prime watching that game. It was a great atmosphere. It was loud in there. Like I said, the corners were almost full. It was everything you could have wanted from a Big Five game. It was awesome to be at. Everything about it, Kyle, was awesome. It makes you think that the Big Five might just be back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, listen, that game is a game that, bless you, epitomizes like what the Big Five is all about. Like that kind of atmosphere where almost the entire corners are full at the Palestra, which hasn't been done for a college game in quite some time. You get a ranked Villanova team in here. Obviously, there's been other ranked teams, in the past, whether it was Villanova or Temple in its heyday or St. Joe's in its heyday, against a smaller team. But you never know what can happen. One, that's the beauty of college basketball, but two, that's the beauty of the Big Five. You get that kind of environment. You get the streamers. How often does Penn get to storm a court? Not often. So that's really cool to see. It was an incredible environment. And for the game itself, yeah, I mean, they they got uh they got stumped by the zone cope. That's what it came down to. I don't know. That's probably something they weren't expecting. They were probably expecting to man up and they were going to use their athleticism to get by guys and, you know, play their normal game, but they couldn't play their normal game against the zone. It made them look average, and they did. So it was an incredible performance by Penn. All the credit in the world to Steve Donahue and his staff and players, obviously. And for Villanova fans, don't overreact. It's a tough game. They hadn't been in the Palestra in a little bit here. Villanova hasn't. It's also one game, and it's November 16th at the time of this recording. This game happened on 13th, 14th, 13th. Trying to get my math straight doesn't always happen, but it it will be fine. I think. There were flashes of this game where they looked like they were going to take over until they didn't. Um, Honestly, maybe this was a good test for them because teams are probably going to throw the 2-3 zone at them now when they watch footage of this game. So unfortunately, they're not playing Syracuse because Syracuse has been in the Big East in quite some time, which I'm still not over. They shouldn't be in the ACC, but that's a story for another day. But ultimately, end of the day, great win by Penn, and that environment is all what the Big Five's about. So kudos to all the fans who showed up and showed out for that one. Um, Listen, I think we're gonna have to just follow that up with the other insanely good game of this midweek window here before we wrap up with another one. But Temple and Drexel matching up, and Drexel playing its second game in Big Five play, hosting this one at the deck. Their first Big Five game hosting, which is pretty cool. And Cope, you were in the building for this one, a 66-64 win for Temple, a game that was really close all the way. Temple definitely almost kind of messed it up a little bit at the end, but they did come away with this one. I'm gonna let you take it away again. What did you see in this one, which was a much different game, but still a very good game at the deck?
Yeah, absolutely. And another great atmosphere as well. The deck sold out. I've only been there twice, but sold out big time. It was a tough ticket to get. And it's a smaller place, only about 2,500 people it holds this. It was very loud in there, a lot of students. It was really, really good. Big Five atmosphere. A lot of Temple people there as well, which is always cool to see. There's quite a bit of Villanova people at the Palestra on Monday, and quite a bit of Temple people here that made the trek down to the deck on Tuesday. Thing that stuck out to me, Kyle, how about the Temple defense? Amari Williams, the CAA preseason player of the year, like we probably said a bunch of times, 8 points. He had 2 made baskets and 3 turnovers. Now on the defensive end, he had some blocks, altered a bunch more shots, but on offense, a guy they want to play through, and even when you double him, they want to, he's a very good passer and can find guys. Temple was physical with him. Sam Hoffman was great. They picked off a couple post entry passes before they even got to Amari Williams. Their defense was very, very good this game. They and the thing is, this I was you had been to a Temple game. You were at their opener against Maryland Eastern
Correct.
Shore. That was the first look I had at them this year in person. They're connected. They play with a ton of energy. And although this is a lot of transfers and then a freshman like Zion Stanford who is new and is playing minutes, they're cohesive. They really are. Like these guys have bought into what Adam Fisher's preaching to them. They play together. They play for each other. They were very, very impressive, Kyle. Very, very impressive. And on a night where Drexel shot a better 3-point percentage than them, shot a better field goal percentage than them, Temple still ended up getting this done. Isaiah Miller, 5 of 22, not his best game, had 19 points, couple assists, knocked down some threes when he had to, made some shots when Temple needed it the most, and they pulled this one out. And they were up as many as 14 in the first half. They were knocking down shots. They were getting in the paint, kicking it out, shooting a lot of threes. Sam Hoffman knocked down some shots. Picarelli only made 1 3, but had some pretty solid looks. And the thing I liked about Temple was there was only 2 guys. It was really only 3 guys on the bench that played. Akpomo played some spot minutes, but it was Jordan Riley, the Georgetown transfer, and then Zion Stanford, the freshman who's been playing very well this season. Zion Stanford 6 points in the first half, and then Jordan Riley when they needed it badly, and Drexel started to creep back into the game in the second half. He knocked down 2 shots when Temple really needed. So it's like they had some big time buckets in the first half from the bench guys and the starters. Although it wasn't a great shooting night for them, they did enough, especially defensively. When you have a game like this where nothing's going your way, when you play defense, Kyle, and you win on that end, you're going to be in a lot more games, and results like this can happen even when you have an off shooting night. But the cohesiveness, the energy this group plays with, Adam Fisher was super animated on the sidelines, was getting the crowd, all the Temple fans into it at the end. Really, really impressive stuff here from the Owls. And on Drexel's side, like, look, I know they're 0-2 in the Big Five here, but they've been competitive and have played 2 close games. They really couldn't make anything in the first half. Now, Luke House finishes this game with 20, and they really needed every single bucket from him to stay in this game. Made a bunch of threes to keep them in it. But good move by Zach Spiker here. End of the first half, they were down as many as 14. They pressed, and they got back into a zone, allowed Temple to really get into their half-court offense with about 20 seconds left on the clock, made them burn almost a third of the shot clock by the time they really got into what they were trying to do. They slowed them down a little bit with Adam Fisher wanting to play so fast. And they cut the lead down to 7 at halftime, which was big. That one adjustment got them right back in the game going into the second half. They continued with that zone. Temple, not their greatest 3-point shooting. And I thought they had some looks that definitely could have went down. But really good adjustment there and good defensive scheme by Drexel to keep themselves in it. And then they kept battling. They pressed, they forced a couple of turnovers, they kept themselves in this, and then Justin Moore makes the front end of a set of 2 free throws. It's 66 to now 64. He misses the second one. Amari Williams had a really good look at a game tying tip and to send this thing to overtime, and it just rimmed out, unfortunately. So really, really good game to be at. Came down to the wire again, but really, really impressed with the resolve and the togetherness of this Temple team. I'm not going to make any crazy assumption that they're going to beat a Memphis or an FAU and win this conference, but the way they play now, the energy they have, I really like what Adam Fisher's doing there. I believe this team's going to be in a lot more games than people thought they were going to
Yeah, absolutely. And, to your point about the cohesiveness too, I definitely noticed that in the first game. Obviously, it was the first game, so maybe not so much as you might have seen against Drexel, but I will say, and I also don't want to like throw a lot of shade on last year's team at all. That's not what I'm trying to do here, but I sense the cohesion a lot more than I did with last year's team. Obviously, we talk about the talent from last year's team as well. Maybe this year's team doesn't have that as much, but I sense them actually playing together as a team, being there for each other. Uh, it's a beautiful thing to see. And like you said, they bought into Adam Fisher's, his philosophies, his system. And we're only 3 games in for them, but it's definitely seeming to pay off. And I'm excited to see how it continues to pay off. this season. And as for Drexel, a very tough loss. Um, but I think maybe, like you said, people maybe underestimated this Temple team a little bit. So if Drexel fans don't take this one too hardly, I'm not sure that's the right context for that word, but it's fine. You know what I mean? Uh, don't take this too hard. It's not the end of the world. It's a tough loss against a team that plays tough. And Amari Williams might have had one of the worst games he will have this season, at least on the offensive end. So take that with a grain of salt. A lot of season left. Like I said, when we were talking about Villanova, it's only November. It's only mid-November, not even feast week yet. Uh, it'll be okay. Don't you worry. But a tough game all around. And listen, fun to see Drexel being competitive in these two Big Five games that they've played so far. Unfortunately, they will now only be playing for fifth place in the Big Five Classic on December 2nd, but somebody had to be. There was two teams that we knew were going to be playing uh for fifth place. So unfortunate in their first season, but it won't be the end of the world for them. I think they've proven that they can be competitive, which is fun to see. Speaking of the other side of that bracket, Cope, we had one more game this weekend that we need to go over. It was LaSalle taking on Bucknell. Of course, we've talked about former St. Joe's assistant John Griffin III for them. And LaSalle did win this one, 69-57. And just like the beginning of last year, if I remember correctly, we're getting contributions on LaSalle from a lot of different people off the bat. Deshaun Shepard was the star of this one, 22 points on 8 of 12 from the field, also contributing 9 rebounds, so very good game for him. Of course, you'll still have your Khalil Brantley input, who had 13 points on 4 of 10, 6 rebounds as well. Jameer Brickus with an efficient 12 points on 4 of 6 from the field. Morello had 12 points on 4 of 11 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3, which is really good to see. And again, as we mentioned with Temple, the star of this show was the LaSalle defense. They forced 17 turnovers. Bucknell shot 37.5% from 3, although Jack Forrest did have 27 points on 7 of 14. So he was the star of the show for Bucknell. But the rest of the team was shut down by LaSalle. And listen, now LaSalle's off to a good start this year as well. Definitely something that, you know, maybe we weren't expecting as much, especially with the game against Drexel. I think a lot of people expected Drexel to win that game. I think we were both in that boat as well. So Cope, Sal is off to a good start again this year. What do you make of this game against Bucknell?
Yeah, so they sure are, and they played a little bit smaller with Rokas Yotsus only playing 11 minutes in this game, but won the turnover battle. They won on the glass. Bucknell, that 3-point percentage up around 40%. That's not what you want to see. But this was a team that they should have beat. I know, with some good Patriot League teams, they're probably on the same level as some A10. This is a Bucknell team in a rebuild that I was not really at all with what they did against Penn. But it's a first time head coach. It's a roster that a lot of holdovers from last year's Bucknell team, but they really weren't exceptional either to the point where this is it's just a game they should have won. So good to see them take care of business. 3-0 after they've been home 3 weeks. 3-0 for them is it's great to see. Yeah, it's really impressive to see what Deshaun Shepard's done ever since last year because he didn't play too much under Ashley Howard. And then when he was given an opportunity last year, his rebounding, his athleticism, it was something that LaSalle didn't really have at that position. He gave them something at forward spot they didn't really have. So, his evolution as a player and how much he's contributing, it's almost astounding, to see where he's come from his freshman year with barely playing at all to now starting and then leading them with almost a 20-point double in a
Yeah.
game. His development's been really, really impressive, and he's certainly taken the opportunity he's had and run with it. So really good to see him do that. There's really only 6 guys that return from this team, Kyle, with Andres Morero being the 6th man. He's going to be relied upon a lot this year. And the one thing we know he can do is knock down threes and knock down shots. He did that in this game. Another Big Five team, we're going to have to harp on the free throws a little bit because against better competition, 15-26, likely not going to fly. But a good game from LaSalle here by the guys that decided to return. They clearly went a little bit smaller with Rokas not playing as many minutes as he normally would, and against a Bucknell team where if their center Williamson isn't in the game, like they're going to play smaller as well. So nice to see them kind of adjust to how to their competition and still be able to put up a win like this. But very winnable game for them that they should not have lost. But hey, they're 3-0. They're 3-0. And after everything they lost in the offseason, even though we're not in the conference play where you're going to see better competition, guys that got scouting reports on you and some better teams, for them to start out like this, really, really impressive for them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, just like last year, they had a pretty decent start in their non-conference slate. Obviously, things evened out once they got later in it and, in conference play as well. But it's a good start, and that's all you can really ask for. And they're getting contributions from guys all around the lineup. And Fran Dunphy's got these guys going. I mean, listen, tell me if you've heard this before. Fran Dunphy's got his guys going. Tell me if you've heard that before, Cope. I
Mm-hmm.
believe a couple
Yeah,
times, maybe.
maybe a time or two.
Yeah, yeah, just a couple times, He's only Mr. Big Five for a reason. So it's great to see. I'm hoping that they can keep it up, obviously, because, we obviously want to see the best for our Big Five teams. But especially this one that I think people were probably the most down on entering the season. And now they have a win against the Big Five team in Drexel, and they've got a couple other wins to count too. So definitely great to see, and looking forward to seeing what else they can do, especially with this lineup flipping. I know you mentioned Rocasio only played 11 minutes in this one. Obviously he starts, and plays a lot of minutes most days. So we'll see maybe if they try more small ball this year, or if they keep Rocas in, and it'll be interesting to see. But Fran Dunphy, we trust always. Cope, that's pretty much all we got for going over games and stuff, and for this episode. But of course, we want to end it with going over one game that we love to see going into the weekend. I have one, so I'll start off. Obviously, we got the Gavitt games this weekend, so Maryland versus Villanova will be a very interesting one. The Hakeem Hart revenge game we'll be keeping tabs on for sure in that individual matchup. But I'm expecting a Nova bounce back win here. I definitely think they're the better team in this one, and you know, it's going to be probably the best quality game in the Big Five this weekend. But I want to hear your opinion on what game you're most looking forward to.
Well, yeah, it is going to be the best game in the Big Five this weekend because we look at the rest of the slate here, and LaSalle is going to get Southern Indiana, who's new to D1
Yeah.
last year, who they're playing as part of the Blue Devil Challenge, and we'll talk about them going to see a top 10 team down at Cameron Indoor Stadium, which
Oh
is
yeah.
Cameron Indoor Stadium, not the Cameron Indoor Center, as you tried
All
to
right,
gas
I
on
messed up one time. It happened.
last year that you tried to say. Can't let you get away
I
with
tried to
that
pull a
again.
fast one on you.
So they're
So
gonna. Well, I don't even think you knew the fast one that you pulled on me, but
I was mistaken in the
we'll move on. I mean, it's only like a top five most famous arena in this sport. I would hope that you can. We'll move on. I forgive you. I forgive you. That was then.
Thank
This
you.
is now.
Thank you.
LaSalle's going to play Southern Indiana, new to D1 last year. The Screaming Hawks, great name.
Great name.
St. Joe's is going to play Texas A&M Commerce, who is 1-4 this year, and they beat some school that I think is called Arts and Sciences.
Huh.
They're 0-4 against D1 competition. They started out playing Texas A&M and Texas Tech, scored 46 points in both games. So probably you should see another result like the Stonehill game that they just played, that being part of the Wildcat Challenge, where they're going to go play Kentucky Rupp Arena next week. And then Temple going to play Columbia, probably the worst team in the Ivy League, and probably going to get rid of their coach and be looking for a new guy at the end of the season. So not exactly quality opponents. And then it's this weekend or early next week. Penn is going to Maryland Eastern Shore as the road game as a part of a home and home Maryland Eastern Shore. If they're not in Philly enough, they were at St. Joe's and Temple last year. They were at Temple again this year. They're going to be going back to Philly next year because why wouldn't they? They've already been there.
Why not?
But there's not exactly great competition in the Big Five except for this game. And there's a lot on the line this game because Villanova fans are already getting restless after last year and after the Penn loss. Now they're going to have a Big Ten team come in the building. And you look at the rest of their non-conference, Kyle, and they have St. Joe's at home, and they're going to have the triple header. They got to go to Kansas State. They have the battle for Atlantis coming up soon because, hey, Feast Week right around the corner. College basketball's
Oof.
first big week is around the corner, is coming up. They got to start and they got to play Texas Tech. And then they're going to have a handful of other teams that they could have to see there that can be resume boosters for sure. They're going to have a very good defensive team in the Red Raiders with Grant McCaslin taking over. They got to play UCLA. Like there's like this schedule, and then of course that's not even to mention the gauntlet they're going to play in the Big East.
I was about to say Big East schedule will be here before you know it.
Schedule does not get any easier. So if you drop the Penn game, it's only going to get a lot harder from here, having to go play at a Kansas State. It's only going to get harder. So this is the best game as far as the competition and the level of the teams. This is the best game with how much is on the line because Villanova fans and the team really needs a big time bounce back at home here against Maryland. I think they'll get it, but that is absolutely the one you circle on your calendar. That's the biggest game in the Big Five this weekend. And the Gavitt games are great. It's a shame that the Big Ten is expanding to 1 billion teams now and expanding to be, a nationwide now.
It's a business.
We can't keep it, but
it's not a conference. It's a business.
And they just love ruining everything in the NCAA, don't they? So doing away with this because Gavitt game's been awesome, really, really good. To see the Big Ten and the Big East on display and have them play each other. So we'll enjoy it while it's still here. But that's the game of the week. And Philly, how about Philly's very own Dante Scott, still playing college basketball? By the way, I thought he would have graduated like 2 years ago. For Maryland, strong guy, can stretch the floor, can play the 4 spot, can space the floor a little bit. Will be cool. And then how about Jameer Young, transfer from Charlotte last year, was dynamite for Kevin Willard in his first year with the Terps, scoring the ball for them. He leads them in scoring right now. So I think Maryland's solid. If they're a tournament team, Kyle, they're probably going to do what they did last year and win a game and not make the second weekend because unfortunately for Kevin Willard, like he's never made it. Even when he was at Seton Hall, he didn't make a deep run. It was a lot of we make the tournament, we win a game, we lose.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is like a world beater of a team they're going to play, but it's still a Power 5 team. It's still a good team, and it's still, part of the Gavitt games and a good test for them because they played an Ivy League team in Penn. Not to say that the Quakers aren't good and are going to be in contention to make the playoffs and make the Ivy League tournament and can give themselves a chance to play in March. But they played Lemoyne, they played American. This is the best team they've played. This is the game that means the most. It's a measuring stick game for them. There's a lot on the line here for the Wildcats.
Yeah, there sure is. I mean, it's gonna be an incredible competition. I'm very much looking forward to it. One more, or actually 2 more games we forgot about though. Too Drexel hosting Fairfield tomorrow on Friday, which is interesting. The Stags, another great name. And then on Sunday, quick turnaround, they're also hosting Queens, North Carolina College.
Are we ready for some story time? Not to cut you off.
Go for it.
I don't know if I can't break down Fairfield as a team for you, but I have some news because they had for the second or third straight year in the MAC, the MAAC.
Yes.
We had a very, very late off-season, beginning of the season coaching change in that conference. And this year it was with Fairfield and it was with the Stags. Jay Young, their head coach, was out, and that was reported by Mr. Trilly Donovan, the knower of all things college basketball, who goes, just by the which is hilarious, by the way.
He's so funny.
He had resigned a month ago today, literally.
Okay.
Pretty messy situation. The great thing about Trilly Donovan is he just gets the anonymous scoops, and some stuff comes out. He's obviously doing his Big J thing and not disclosing his sources and everything. There was a rift between the assistant and Jay Young, and it was basically like Jay Young was trying to say to the assistant, "You're out for what you did on the foreign tour," and the assistant was saying, "Hey, like, you might have to come down with me. Like, I kind of have something on you as well," and it's just kind of been a mess.
Nasty.
So yeah, very, very late coaching change here for Fairfield. This is a team that they definitely should beat with the mess that's going on around.
And they're a good basketball team, in my opinion. Those Drexel Dragons.
So, yeah, no, they should be able to get back
game
on the board here at home. But yeah, a lot going on off the court with Fairfield to the point where it's a winnable game anyway for them. But with that hoopla surrounding the Stags, it should anyway. As they host their own MTE, by the way, the Market Street Challenge. They're not playing some bye games and then going to travel somewhere. Why not do it from the comfort of your own home and your own?
Exactly. Exactly. And they'll have a week off between games. After that Queens, North Carolina game, they have a week off until they travel to Old Dominion, going down to Virginia to face them. So yeah, why not enjoy some comfort of your own home while people use your court? It's not a bad deal. Anyway, that's pretty much all we got here. Cope, any final thoughts real quick before we skedaddle?
Yeah, shout out to the Penn Quakers. Fun year to be with them for a year till football season's done in 2 days. We play our last game against Princeton, so we got to beat our arch rival, even though we don't have a shot for the championship. But yeah, wish we could have put a lot more stuff out. I was just working absolutely nuts, insane hours, traveling with the team. So although it's bittersweet for that to come in at coming to an end, definitely gonna miss the guys. Probably won't miss getting up at early in the morning and going to
Oh,
practice
yeah.
some days. But looking forward to get back in the swing of things. With Big Five hoops and hopefully going through a lot more games, I have a little bit of downtime.
All right. Listen, sounds good to me. We'll have to go to gonna have to get some games together. We have not gotten to a game together yet so far this year, early in the season, of course. So there's plenty of time, but we will definitely both be at some games, both individually and together as well. And for me, I mean, I just hope the Jets score a touchdown this week. I don't think it's that much to ask, but it's been about nearing 40 drives, so we'll see. We'll see. Next, we're playing well though. Julius Randle's back, and yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we very much appreciate your love and support. And if you'd like to continue to do so, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Big Five Pod. And of course, make sure you listen to our audio only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Plenty of game action this weekend, so go enjoy that. And we'll be back here to talk about it at the beginning of next week. We'll see you.